ba? Tama ba?
Okay. How was your SGD last week? Fine. You were able to get it? Wala na? Everybody's here? Sige. My lecture for this morning will be about the hip, knee, and ankle joints. Okay? So we'll start with the hip. You know where your hips are, no? One on each side. Okay, so you have all the palpebral-pelvic landmarks. You have the iliac crest, the ascis, the piscis there, the inguinal ligament, the pubis, the symphysis pubis, the greater trunk, and the lesser trunk. And actually, you cannot really palpate the lesser trunk unless you do it deeply. Then you have the ischial tuberosities there. Okay. The hip, like we said 2 weeks ago, is ball and socket joint. Now, it's also called the coxofemoral joint. It's between the acetabulum and the femur. How do you pronounce femur? Femur or femur? Femur. Okay. When I was a medical student, we pronounced it here, femur. When I went for training in Manila, they pronounce it femur. So which is which? How do you want it pronounced?
We don't trust the guy.
Femur. Okay. Let's do it the Ilonggo way. Femur. Okay. So it's a ball and socket joint. So there are 3 degrees of freedom of motion. Now, flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, and external and internal rotation. Okay, the functions of the hip joint are to support the weight of the head, the arms, and the trunk. Okay, and to provide a pathway for the transmission of forces between the pelvis and the lower extremity. Okay, so the cup-like concave socket of the hip joint is called the acetabulum there. And it is located at the lateral aspect of the pelvis or the pelvic bone. Okay? So 3 bones form the pelvis. Okay, so you have the ischium, the ilium, and the pubis. Okay, and each of the 3 bones contribute to the structure of the acetabulum. So the acetabulum is made up of 1/5 is from the pubis, 2/5 from the ilium, and 2/5 from the ischium. Okay? And this is what is this? The femur. Okay, there's the femoral head, the femoral neck, there's the greater trunk and the lesser trunk, that's the shaft. And those are the condyles and the epicondyles. Okay? So the femoral head is about 2/3 of a spear. Okay, so you see an inclination there, no? There's an angulation. Okay, we'll discuss that later. This one is the superior view. Okay, you have touched on the bones of the lower X, no? Not yet? You're supposed to start this week. Upper extremity, tapos na. Okay. So this is the acetabulum again, no? Only the upper margin of the acetabulum has a true circular contour, no? And actually the roundness of the acetabulum decreases with age. Okay? So in actuality, only a horseshoe-shaped portion of the acetabular periphery is covered with hyaline cartilage. Okay, and it's That's the only part which articulates with the head of the femur. Okay, the inferior aspect is interrupted by a deep notch called the acetabular notch. And this acetabular notch is spanned by a fibrous band called the transverse acetabular ligament that connects the two ends of the horseshoe. Okay. Now, in addition to its lateral orientation, the acetabulum is also oriented somewhat inferiorly and anteriorly. Okay? And the magnitude of the inferior orientation is assessed on X-rays by using a line connecting the lateral rim of the acetabulum with the center of the femoral head. Okay, so that's the lateral rim of the acetabulum, and that's the center of the femoral head. So you draw a line, and then you get the angle that it makes with the vertical. So you get the center edge angle, or the angle of Weiberg or Wiberg. And it measures the amount of inferior tilt of the acetabulum. Okay? So it's actually a measure of the amount of coverage or roof over the femoral head. Okay? Okay, so here we have the acetabular labrum. No? This is an accessory joint structure that is necessary for stability of the hip joint. Okay, so the acetabular labrum deepens the socket and also increases the concavity of the acetabulum and grasps the head of the femur to maintain contact with the acetabulum. Okay, so the acetabular fossa, that's the area medial to the horseshoe-shaped articular cartilage. It contains the ligamentum teres, a fat pad, and synovial membrane. It functions for, it permits the necessary movement of the ligamentum teres, as well as it acts as a reservoir for synovial fluid when the hip is heavily loaded. Okay? So this is the femoral head. You will see that it's actually more circular, unlike the more irregularly shaped acetabulum. Okay, and just inferior or adjacent to the most medial part of the femoral head, you see a small roughened pit called the fovea or fovea capitis. Okay, it's not covered with articular cartilage, and it is the point at which the ligament of the head of the femur is attached. Okay? So that's where the ligament of the head of the femur is attached. And there's the femoral neck, which is generally about 5 centimeters long. Okay. So the femoral neck is angled so that the femoral head most commonly faces medially, superiorly, and anteriorly. Okay? Now there are 2 angulations made by the head and neck of the femur in relation to the shaft. Okay? One angulation is called the angle of inclination. Okay. So it occurs in the frontal plane. It's between an axis through the femoral head and neck and an axis through the femoral shaft. So that's the angle of inclination. It's about 126 degrees. The other angle is the angle of torsion. It's 12 to 15 degrees. It occurs in the transverse plane between an axis through the femoral head and neck and an axis through the condyles. So that forms an angle. Okay? The ligamentum teres is an intra-articular but an extra-synovial accessory joint structure. Okay, it is a triangular band. It is attached at one end to both sides of the peripheral edge of the acetabular notch, and then it passes under the transverse acetabular ligament, and then it is attached to the fovea. Okay? It is also called the ligament of the head of the femur. Okay, and it carries the artery of the ligamentum teres. Okay? So it has its own it has a sleeve of synovial membrane so that it does not communicate with the synovial cavity of the hip joint. So it's intra-articular, but it's extra-synovial. Okay? It functions primarily as a conduit for the secondary blood supply of the obturator artery, as well as for the nerves that travel along the ligament to reach the head of the femur. Okay, and tension occurs in extreme positions, like a combination of adduction plus flexion plus external rotation, or adduction plus extension plus internal rotation. Okay. Okay. There are three ligaments that reinforce the hip joint. Okay, and aside from these ligaments, the hip joint also gets reinforcement from the dynamic action of the muscles that cross the hip joint. Okay, so the three capsular ligaments are the iliofemoral, pubofemoral, and ischiofemoral. Okay, so from the three bones of the pelvis to the femur. Okay, so the iliofemoral ligament, it covers the hip joint superiorly and anteriorly. Okay, that's the iliofemoral ligament. There are two parts. No, this ligament runs from the anterior inferior iliac spine to the intertrochanteric line. Okay, so it's like an inverted Y. Okay, so it covers the hip joint anteriorly and superiorly. Now the superior part, being superior or being located superiorly, what does it limit? What movement does it limit? Adduction. Very good. Okay, the inferior part being located inferiorly, it prevents what? Inferiorly and anteriorly. What does it prevent? Hyperextension. Okay. The lateral limb of the Y is also known as the iliotrochanteric band. Okay. The pubofemoral ligament is rather thin. No? It runs from the iliopubic ramus to the inferior surface of the intertrochanteric line. So it's anterior and inferior to the hip joint, and as such, it resists which movements? Being anterior, it resists excessive external rotation, no? And being inferior, it resists abduction. Okay? So the pubofemoral ligament resists excessive external rotation and abduction. Okay? The ischiofemoral ligament is found posteriorly. Now it runs from the posterior acetabular surface to the greater troch and intertrochanteric crest. It is the thinnest of the three ligaments. By virtue of its posterior and inferior location, it limits internal rotation and abduction. Okay? So to review, no? There are three hip ligaments: the iliofemoral, the pubofemoral, and the ischiofemoral. Okay, the iliofemoral ligament, because of its superior and anterior location, limits adduction and hyperextension. The pubofemoral ligament, because of its anterior and inferior location, limits external rotation and abduction, while the ischiofemoral ligament, because of its posterior and inferior location, limits internal rotation and abduction. Okay, very good. Maximum contact between the acetabulum and the femur occurs in a position of a combination of flexion plus slight external rotation plus slight abduction. Okay, so it's the quadruped position. Okay, when you're down on all fours, it's a quadruped position. Okay, in the upright position, there is less contact between the acetabulum and the femur. Okay, remember our definition of close-packed position. Ano gani ang close-packed position? What is the definition of the close-packed position? It's where the joint is maximally stable, na? And the ligaments are all what? Are all tight. No? So it's the position of maximum stability. Okay? So in the hip, the position of maximum stability is actually extension. But that is also the position where contact between the acetabulum and femur is not so optimal. So it's the opposite. No? Okay? So there are six muscle groups that control the hip. Okay, so we have the flexors, extensors, abductors, adductors, and external and internal rotators. So we have two groups of principal hip flexors. We have the iliopsoas group and the anterior group. Okay. The iliopsoas group consists of the iliacus and the psoas, while the anterior group is comprised of the rectus and the sartorius. So the psoas group originates from the lower lumbar vertebra. The iliacus muscle arises from the iliac crest and fossa, and together they insert into the lesser tuberosity or lesser trochanter of the femur. Okay? The action of the iliacus and psoas, or the iliopsoas, when the trunk is stabilized, they flex the hip. Okay? But when the leg is planted, they flex the lumbar spine. Okay? So that's the reverse action. So they could either flex the hip or they could flex the lumbar spine. Okay. The anterior group of hip flexors originates from the anterior part of the ilium. No? So there's the sartorius, the pectineus, the rectus femoris, and the rectus femoris. Okay. So from the anterior part of the ilium, they insert into, the sartorius inserts into the medial tibial condyle. The rectus femoris inserts into the proximal tibia, no? Through the patella. Okay, the pectineus arises from the iliopectineal line and the pubis to insert into the lesser trunk, the base of the lesser trunk. Then we have the hip extensors, which are found posteriorly. Okay, the abductor group and the hamstrings group. Okay, the abductor group is comprised of the gluteus maximus, the hamstrings group, the rest of the muscles here. Okay, so you have the gluteus maximus, Then you have the adductor magnus, the semitendinosus, the semimembranosus, their biceps femoris. Okay, the gluteus max originates from the posterior superior ilium and sacrum and inserts into the greater trunk. Okay, the hamstrings group originate from the ischial tuberosity and insert distally, no, into different locations of the femur, the tibia, and the fibula. The hip abductors are the gluteus medius and minimus, the tensor fascia lata, and the piriformis. They all originate from the ilium. Okay, so you find the gluteus medius and minimus beneath the gluteus maximus. Okay, and then under that you find the piriformis. Notice the proximity of the sciatic nerve, with the piriformis muscle. So when you have a spasm of the piriformis, sometimes you get signs or symptoms related to sciatic nerve compression. Okay, so that's the tensor fascia lata. It originates from the ascis and the iliac crest and inserts into the fibula. Then we have the hip adductors, no? Adductor magnus, longus, and brevis, the pectineus, and the gracilis. They are found on the medial aspect of the thigh. Okay? So they originate from the ischial rami and pubis and insert into the proximal femur. The internal rotators, there is no well-defined group of internal rotators. Okay? Most muscles that cross the hip joint have secondary actions that assist either external or internal rotation. Okay. The principal external rotators of the thigh lie deep in the gluteal region. No? They originate largely from the sacrum or the ischium and insert into or adjacent to the greater trochanter. Range of motion for the hip flexion is 120 with the knee flexed, 70 to 90 with the knee extended. Why is it less with the knee extended? Because of what? Yeah, because of tension in the hamstrings. Okay? Extension is from 0 to 10. Abduction 45, adduction 30, internal rotation 60, external rotation 30 degrees. Okay, so for the blood supply, the hip region receives blood supply from branches of the external and internal iliac arteries. No? So it's the superior and inferior gluteal arteries, the obturator artery, the femoral artery. Okay. The nutrient artery supplies the femoral shaft. Okay, the obturator, the medial and lateral circumflex or femoral circumflex arteries supply the trochanters as well as the head and the neck of the femur and the head distal to the epiphyseal plate. Okay, for the area proximal, this is the epiphyseal plate. For the area proximal to the epiphyseal plate, it's the artery of the ligamentum teres that supplies that area. So until bony maturation, the femoral head is supplied primarily or through vessels within the ligamentum teres. Okay, and if you disrupt the blood supply prior to closure of the epiphyseal plate, this may lead to a vascular necrosis of the head of the femur. Okay? Any questions before we go to the knee? No questions? Are you in a hurry? Yeah, I'm guessing you are. No? Okay, so it's not the knee joint, it's a knee complex. Okay? The knee complex is one of the most commonly injured joints or areas, in the human body. Okay, it has a lot of ligamentous attachments and a lot of muscles crossing it. No, so that allows for the elaborate interplay between mobility and stability, which are the knee complex's major functions. Okay, so the knee works in conjunction with the hip and the ankle to support the body weight, and dynamically, the knee complex is responsible for moving and supporting the body during a variety of activities. Okay, so the knee complex, there are 3 bones that participate in the knee complex: the femur, the tibia, and the patella. Okay? The femur, the tibia, and the patella. Okay. There are 2 articulations: the femorotibial joint and the femoropatellar joint. Okay? So the femorotibial joints are 2 hinge joints between the medial and lateral condyles of the femur and the corresponding condyles of the tibia. Okay? The femorotibial joints support the weight of the body. Okay? It's adapted for weight bearing at any degree of flexion, but it is most stable in extension. Okay. The patellofemoral joint is a plain gliding joint between the distal femur and the patella. Okay. It functions as a pulley for the quadriceps femoris muscle group. The ligaments of the knee complex are classified as either extracapsular or intracapsular. Okay, so extracapsular, outside the capsule. So you have ligamentum patella, which is attached above to the lower patella and below to the tibial tuberosity. So this is found anteriorly. Posteriorly, you have the oblique popliteal ligament, which is actually a tendinous expansion of the semimembranosus muscle. So this is the ligamentum patella, okay, from the lower border of the patella to the tibial tuberosity, and there you have the oblique popliteal ligament. Okay, then you have the lateral collateral ligament and the medial collateral ligament. So collateral, it's found on the sides. Okay, the lateral collateral ligament is attached above to the lateral condyle of the femur and below to the fibular head. And because of that lateral location, it prevents adduction of the tibia on the femur. Okay, it tightens, as with any collateral ligament, it tightens on extension, it loosens on flexion. Diba? Okay, the medial collateral ligament is found on the medial side. No? It is attached above to the medial femoral condyle and below to the medial surface of the tibial shaft. And its action is to prevent abduction of the tibia on the femur. Okay? So, there's the medial collateral ligament, and there's the lateral collateral ligament. Okay? Then we have the cruciate ligaments. These are the main connections between the femur and the tibia. So there are 2, the ACL and the PCL. No? They are called cruciate ligaments because they form they cross each other. Okay. So the ACL is attached to the inferior intercondylar fossa. It passes upward and laterally to attach on the inside of the lateral femoral condyle. So from the anterior intercondylar fossa, it goes upward and laterally. No? to the inside of the lateral femoral condyle. It prevents posterior displacement of the femur on the tibia. Okay? If you have an ACL tear, you would have a positive anterior drawer sign. Okay? For the PCL, it is attached on the posterior intercondylar fossa. It passes upward and medially to attach on the inside of the medial femoral condyle. It prevents anterior displacement of the femur on the tibia. Okay, if you have a PCL tear, you would have a positive drawer sign. Okay, the anterior and posterior drawer sign. Okay, you elicit them through the drawer test. Okay, so how do you do a drawer test? You ask the patient to lay supine. The hip is flexed at 45 degrees. The knee is flexed at 90 degrees, and the examiner sits on the patient's foot. Okay, and then the examiner grasps the patient's tibia and pulls it forward for the anterior drawers test and pushes it backward, for the posterior drawers test. Okay, if the tibia pulls forward or backward more than normal, you have to compare it with the other side. If it pulls forward or backward more than normal, the test is considered positive. Okay, but positive anterior drawers test, it's an anterior drawer sign. That's an ACL tear. Okay, but posterior drawers test, positive, it's a PCL tear. Okay? There's another knee test called the Lachman maneuver, which is a variation on the drawer test. This is done the same way, except that the knee is in 30 degrees of flexion. Okay? So there's the ACL and the PCL. Anterior view, with the knee in flexion. Okay, ACL, PCL. Posterior view with the knee in extension. That's the PCL, and that's the ACL. Okay? Then we go to the menisci. Menisci are C-shaped fibrocartilage sheets. They are also called the semilunar cartilages. Okay, they deepen the articular surfaces of the tibial condyles to receive the femoral condyles, and they serve as cushions between the femur and the tibia. The menisci have a lot of attachments, especially the medial menisci, the medial meniscus. No? They are attached to the tibia through their horns and through coronary ligaments. No? And these are the other attachments: the transverse ligament, meniscopatellar fibers, the MCL, through the popliteus and semimembranosus muscles, and the meniscofemoral ligament. Okay. Now, the menisci are moved and controlled on the tibia by both passive and active forces. So passively, when the knee is extended, they are pushed anteriorly by the femoral condyles. No? On active knee extension, they are moved anteriorly by the meniscopatellar fibers that are attached to the quadriceps extensor mechanism. Okay? So if the menisci fail to move, they will be crushed, no? Or torn. Okay? So this is, which one is lateral? Which one is medial? Which one is O-shaped? The lateral or the medial? Lateral. Okay. So the lateral meniscus is more O-shaped. The medial meniscus is more C-shaped. Okay? So the anterior and posterior horns of the lateral meniscus insert close together, while the horns of the medial meniscus insert externally. So you can see the synovial membrane there. That's the red part there. So the movement of the medial meniscus is more restricted because of ligamentous attachments. Okay. So during the terminal phase of knee extension, the lateral meniscus is or slides anteriorly, no, with the femur. Okay. The patella is a sesamoid bone, no, and it articulates with the anterior surface of the femoral condyles. The quadriceps muscle stabilizes the patella on all sides and guides motion between the femur and the patella. Okay? So why do we have a patella? Okay? To increase leverage of the quads, to provide bony protection to the distal joint surfaces, to decrease pressure and distribute forces on the femur, to prevent damaging compression forces on the quads tendon with resisted knee flexion. Okay, so it's really important, no? Other structures in the knee, we have bursae. So there's a lot, no? So anteriorly you find suprapatellar, prepatellar, superficial, suprapatellar, prepatellar, and then infrapatellar, superficial and deep bursae. Then we also have, by the way, inflammation of the prepatellar bursa is called what? Housemaid's knee. No? Pag infrapatellar, it's called vicar's knee. Pag suprapatellar, it's just a stiff knee. Okay? So stiff knee, housemaid's knee, and vicar's knee. Okay. Posteriorly, no, wait. Posteriorly, you see all those blue thingies there. Those are bursae. Okay, so you have a lot of those. There, lateral view, medial view. What is this? Huh? Yeah, tendons of what? What do you call this? This structure?
The quads.
Huh? The three tendons. Pes and serinus, di ba? Okay. So, what happened? So, we go to the muscles controlling the knee, no? We have the knee extensors. Okay. This is called the quadriceps femoris group, no? The rectus femoris and the three vastus. What's the plural for vastus? Vasti. Vastuses. No. Basta vastus. Huh? Rectus and the three vastus muscles. So rectus femoris, vastus medialis, intermedius, and lateralis. Okay, so you have the rectus femoris there, vastus lateralis, and medialis. And if you remove the vastus or the rectus, you find the vastus intermedius beneath it. Okay? So the extensors of the knee originate from the anterior, inferior iliac spine and the proximal femur, and they insert into the tibial tuberosity. Okay. For the flexors, you find them posteriorly. No? So they arise mostly from the ischial tuberosity, except for the gracilis. The gracilis originates on the ischiopubic ramus. Okay? And the sartorius also arises from the anterior superior iliac spine. Okay, the flexors insert into the tibia and the fibula. So, find the biceps femoris, the semitendinosus, semimembranosus, the gracilis there. That's part of the distal part of the sartorius is there. Then you have the medial rotators composed of the sartorius, gracilis, and semitendinosus, and then the lateral rotators, no? Biceps femoris. Okay, range of motion for the knee, flexion is 120 to 150 degrees, extension 0, no? Straight. Hyperextension, not more than 15. Okay, axial rotation, 40 degrees. External rotation is 2 times as large as the internal rotation. Okay, now, remember in my lecture on articulations, no, or joint motion, there are 3 types of joint motion. You have rolling, gliding, and spinning. No? Okay, so in the knee, you find all 3. Okay, so this is a schematic representation of rolling and gliding of the femoral condyles on a fixed tibia. Okay, so during flexion, the femoral condyles roll posteriorly. No? So that's flexion, going. So it goes posteriorly. So it rolls posteriorly while simultaneously gliding anteriorly. Okay? And during extension with the tibia fixed, the femoral condyles roll anteriorly while simultaneously gliding posteriorly. Okay? So there's rolling and gliding. Okay? And then in the last 20 degrees of knee extension, there is an external rotation. Okay? The tibia externally rotates 20 degrees on a fixed femur. So if the tibia were fixed, it's the femur that goes that internally rotates. No? So there is rotation. Okay, this is also known as the screw hole mechanism. It occurs in both active and passive knee extension, and it cannot be produced or prevented voluntarily. Okay? So there's rolling and gliding and rotation. Okay, any questions on the knee complex before we go to the ankle? Okay, I know you're in a hurry to go. Okay, so the ankle joint. The ankle joint is also known as the talocrural joint. Okay, it's between the talus and the crus. Okay, so there are 3 bones that make up the talocrural joint: the distal tibia, the distal fibula, and the talus. Okay, the distal tibia makes up the medial malleolus. The distal fibula makes up the lateral malleolus. Okay. The ankle joint is a hinge joint. So how many degrees of freedom? 1. Huh? Can you check your ankle? Can you check your ankle? How many movements do you find there? 1 degree lang ba? How many? Huh? What can your ankles do? What can your foot do on your leg? Huh? It can
flex and rotate.
What? It can dorsiflex, plantarflex, as well as invert and invert. However, okay, eversion and inversion occurs in the subtalar joint. Okay, so that's a different joint. Okay? So, ankle, no? If you really have to be strict about it, the talocrural joint, hinge joint lang siya. Dorsiflexion, plantarflexion lang. Okay? So, this is the tibia and this is the fibula. Okay, the distal tibia makes up the medial malleolus. The distal fibula is the lateral malleolus. Okay, and that's the inferior articular surface that connects with the talus. Okay. Posteriorly, we find the same things. Okay, and this is the inferior articular surface. You have the ligaments there. Just a few of the ligaments. And this is the foot, no? So this is the talus, and this is what articulates with the inferior articular surface of the tibia and fibula. Okay? So you will discuss the foot tomorrow, no? With Dr. Salcedo.
Yes.
So you have the talus, the calcaneus, the navicular, the three cuneiforms, and that's the cuboid bone. Then you have 5 metatarsals, and then the phalanges. Okay? So you find there the talus. That's the articular surface of the talus. Okay. So we'll just discuss the ligaments. Okay. So there are the ligament. Actually, there are lots of ligaments, no? But they are divided into the medial group and the lateral group. So for the medial group, or the deltoid ligaments, you have the superficial part and the deep part. Superficial part, tibio-navicular and calcaneotibial. So the names of the ligaments are actually confusing, no? So in some books you find this tibio-navicular. It comes by another name, no? So baliskad lang. The calcaneotibial could be tibio-calcaneal, no? So it's confusing. So the superficial part is the tibio-navicular and calcaneotibial ligaments. The deep part, that's the anterior and posterior talotibial or tibiotalar ligaments. Okay? So the anterior talotibial ligament limits plantar flexion. The posterior talotibial ligament limits dorsiflexion. Now, you don't really have to memorize. You just have to remember the location. Diba? Pag anterior sa ankle, so it limits plantar flexion. Pag posterior siya sa ankle, it limits dorsiflexion. Okay? So, that's the tibio-navicular, that's the tibio-calcaneal, oh my god, and that's the posterior tibiotalar and anterior tibiotalar. Okay? So, deep part, superficial part. Medial, ha? Okay? So, anterior, it limits plantar flexion. Posterior, talotibial, it limits dorsiflexion. Okay. For the lateral ligaments, you have 3, no? Anterior and posterior talofibular ligament and the calcaneofibular ligament. Okay. So, anterior again, anterior talofibular, it limits plantar flexion. Posterior talofibular, it limits dorsiflexion. Okay, there. So there. That's the calcaneo, because this is the calcaneus, no? So calcaneofibular ligament. This is the posterior talofibular. This is the anterior talofibular. Okay? Range of motion for the ankle. Oh, sorry. It's 25 degrees, no? Dorsiflexion. Okay? The muscles that are responsible for dorsiflexion are the tibialis anterior, the extensor hallucis longus, extensor digitorum longus, and the peroneus tertius. Okay, so that's the tibialis anterior. and the extensor hallucis longus and extensor digitorum longus. Okay? For plantar flexion, it's 35 degrees. The muscles responsible for that are the posteriorly located muscles. You have the gastrocsoleus, the peroneus longus and brevis, which are found laterally, flexor digitorum longus, flexor hallucis longus, and tibialis posterior. So there's the peroneus longus and the brevis. Okay, gastrocsoleus there. Again, gastrocnemius and soleus. And beneath that, okay, it's the soleus. Beneath the gastrocnemius, you find a better view of the soleus. And the flexor, there's a small muscles there, flexor digitorum longus and hallucis longus. Okay, just like in the wrist, you find tendon sheaths, no? And these are grouped together like in the wrist. No, you have the superior and inferior extensor retinaculum. Okay, the peroneal retinaculum, and they hold the tendons of the foot against the ankle. No? So this is the medial view. Okay. Flexor retinaculum. There's the extensor retinaculum. This is the flexor retinaculum. Okay, that's the last slide. It's 10:30. What time is your exam? 1. Okay. So are you gonna skip lunch? No, of course not. No. Sige. Good luck, guys. I'll see you tomorrow for lumbosacral plexus. Okay? Thank you.
Not after the exam. And may class pa ba? Ay, okay, ito lang. Nag-isip pa. Abig ko. Isa. ID. What?
Excuse me, classmates. To everyone involved in Litmus, ang mga heads and everything, Litmus at midnight, instead of having our meeting tomorrow lunchtime, okay lang if tomorrow dismissal after HPT na lang. Okay lang. You have fun. Sige, see you guys tomorrow.
Guys, for those who are still lacking one event for the requirements, character interpretation is open until tomorrow. So kung kulang pa ang magyapon activities, please approach me immediately. Thank you.
Guys, please be reminded of your 350 for our Med 9. Thank you.
very last one.